It's safe to say that we might have a stuff problem. So that's going to be the topic of my sermon today, is stuff. So if you will join me in prayer, please bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you for this Sabbath, Lord. Thank you for all that you do for us, Lord. Thank you for this church. Thank you for these wonderful people, Lord. Be with me, Lord, right now. I just ask that you take all the little bits and pieces of Luke that are here on stage and reconfigure them in a way that brings honor and glory to your name. These things I pray. In Christ's name, amen. Just give me a second to get set up. So how many of you guys have heard of this concept? It's called minimalism. Raise your hands. Show of hands. Awesome. So I'm going to be touching on that a little bit. I will warn you, it is a secular concept. It is not a Christian concept, but I do believe that it actually has a lot to do with Christianity. So I'm going to be talking to you about that. So there's a few important ideas that come from minimalism. It's something that over a period of time, different people will see it as a different thing. So some person might say, hey, minimalism is art. It's a way that art is presented in a minimalist kind of way. Very little going on a canvas, very little action or anything going on, not a lot of noise. You know, a lot of times we pick on like these minimalist art because we're like, okay, I could do that at home. You know, but that's an art style. Some people see it as a way to organize furniture. So you might see somebody say, hey, I have a minimalist house. You go in there and there's like a couch, maybe a table, a guitar off in the corner. But there's a lot we can learn from that. So some really important key things that I want you to take from minimalism at a secular level that are important. So one of the things about minimalism that comes up very frequently is the emotional purchase. We buy things for how it makes us feel. That's fundamental. That's something that is so important to understand because it's something that we overlook so quickly. It's that concept that you get a new car. Who's ever had a new car? It feels great, right? You get a new car, you can tell everybody about the features, how fast it can go from 0 to 60, or maybe how much money you save by not going to 0 to 60 very fast, if you're a Prius owner. But the Prius Prime is a really cool car. I have been in it, it looks really cool, and I think it might transform into something one day. So, not hating on Prius owners, love you, Chris. Anyways, it's the concept that after a little bit of time, you could have the coolest car, you could have the coolest anything, and eventually, it's not as cool as it used to be. You need something new, you need another car, you need a new thing to get you excited. And so, if I was to remove car from this, it starts to sound kind of like you have a drug addiction. You know, yeah, I got that one time, it was really good, and then, man, it was good, but I need another hit. You know, you kind of get this thing, and I'm talking to you as someone who has this problem. It wasn't that long ago, I was sitting down with Elizabeth, and that's my fiance, by the way, and she was browsing social media. I don't do social media a lot. I get scared. I do IT for a living, so I'm one of those guys who's like, oh my goodness, they know everything about me, where I sleep and stuff. But anyways, so she's on social media. I slipped over to Amazon. Amazon's my guilty pleasure because you don't know what I just purchased. I can purchase anything, and it just shows up at my door. I don't have to go to the store and have that shame of walking with it somewhere. What are you doing, honey? You buying something? You know we're getting married, right? Yeah, it didn't end well for me. But the point is that the reason people like me, maybe like you, I don't know if you're feeling guilty right now, go and shop on Amazon is because it's this constant high. You get this new thing. It comes in the mail. It's in a package. It gives you excitement. For a moment, you are happy. Doesn't matter what's going on at work. Doesn't matter what's going on at school. Doesn't matter what's going on at church. Because for a moment, you just got that new iPhone 7 that doesn't even have a headphone jack. You are so pumped. You have bleeding edge technology that lacks a headphone jack. But you're cooler than all the people with the 6. That's called planned obsolescence. I'm also a business major, sorry. So in the concept of planned obsolescence, it's literally you make something with the intent that it will go bad and they will replace it with something new. That's a thing. If you Google it right now, it's really depressing. That's why your cell phone plan is like, oh yeah, it used to be a 2-year contract, because in about 2 years your phone starts to act funny. Planned obsolescence. So I guess what my point is this concept of not minimalism is so present in our society that we have become numb to it. And so you have this group of secular people who are saying, hey, there might be a little bit better way to live life. There might be a way to kind of get rid of some of these distractions and stuff of that nature. That's the core of minimalism. So that in the minimalist ideology, there's a piece that comes with a lack of unnecessary things. So you walk into your house. How many people clean their house? I hope you all raise your hand. You all clean your house. Wouldn't it be nice if it didn't take half the time or a quarter of the time to clean your house? And that's the concept that you probably have a lot of things in your house that you don't actually need. Well, Luke, I've collected all these things over the years, my little treasures. And I've hoarded them up and I'm really happy about them. They make me happy. Do they really make you happy though? Or is some of that stuff in there that you haven't touched in years? You know, there's a concept within minimalism that if you put something in a box, and you close the lid, and you come back in 2 months, you don't remember what's in that box, it's time to get rid of it. So, you know, that's a difficult concept for a lot of people because we have a lot of stuff that's emotional, you know, that we put in those boxes. But it's funny what you can put in a box and completely forget about that used to be really important to you. So, I have yet to do it. This is a soft place for me. I used to be on an acro team. I have these acro pants. They have holes in them. They're terrible. My girlfriend begs me to get rid of them. She doesn't want to be seen. My fiance doesn't want to be seen with me in public when I'm wearing them. That kind of thing. If I put those in a box, I think I'd still know. But, you know, some things, you know. But enough about minimalism. It branches off into other things. Tiny homes. Anybody heard about a tiny home? That's like forcing yourself to be a minimalist. So, I mean, the average tiny home would probably not even take up this whole stage, and your whole life is there. And so there's a group of people who are really adamant about this. They love the idea of just forcing themselves into a small, confined space, like a prison cell, and living and having everything that they need in that space. Now, that makes a lot of you uncomfortable. I can see it already, and that's okay. It makes me a little uncomfortable too. But the concept is that if you had that small space to work in, and that's all you had, you'd get out more. You'd see people more. You would do more things with people. Now, I don't know about you, and I'm going to preach to myself really quick. I have a people problem. I love y'all. I really do, in small bits and pieces. And so, you know, for me, the idea of a relaxing evening is going back to my house and just tuning it out, you know, and I'm like, somebody texts me, you know, sorry to pick on you again, Chris. Chris will text me, and he'll text me something funny. And I won't even see it for like 2 days. I'm like, really, dude? It's not funny anymore. like it's good. But if you live in a small, tiny house, you would get to that point where you're like, you know, let's get out of here. Let's go do something. You might be more involved with your community. You might be more involved with the people around you. All right, so enough about that. I'm going to throw that aside. I'm going to introduce a new concept that's kind of old school, and it's not really new, but I'm going to say it anyway. So, there's 2 terms I want you to understand. One I accidentally didn't put the definition for, but I will do my best. And the other one I did. That's culture and paradigm shift. Is anyone aware of culture and paradigm shift? Okay. So culture, this is the one I'm making up as I go. So don't quote me on this. Sorry, Webster's. Culture is basically how you do things and why you do them, how you were brought up. There's another term that goes along with that, is socialization, the process by which a human being at infancy acquires their habits, beliefs, accumulated knowledge of society through education and tracking for adult status. So culture ties into that very well. So if you think about culture, you may not realize it, but every single one of you has a culture. I would argue that every single one of you has 2 cultures. How many of you are Adventist? You don't have to raise your hand. How many of you are Christian? Those are cultures. You may not realize it, but those are cultures, and I'll tell you why those are cultures. It's not just about race here. This is actually important. Everybody, and not that race isn't important, this is actually something that we all have in common. Doesn't matter what color your skin is, doesn't matter where you were born, you were all American. You know, at some level, you were all Christian, and most of you were probably Adventist. Now, you might say, how does that factor into anything? Go talk to a non-Adventist. Go talk to a non-Christian. You'll realize you have a culture pretty quick. Pretty quick. You know, or, you know, as the stable we always say, hey, let's go eat haystacks. You know, Non-Adventist is going to be like, y'all people are a cult. You guys eat, freaking hay, like horse stuff. What's going on? But, we're saying taco salad, and so it's like, I guess it's so important to realize that you have a culture and that's okay. That's a good thing. That's part of who you are. Let's touch on that American culture for a little bit. So in the American culture, what goes on? What goes on that makes us uncomfortable? How many of you are in debt? You don't have to raise your hand. I'm guessing a decent amount of you are in debt. I'm in debt. I hate debt. How many of you feel like you've been sold to or told to buy something, like you've been, advertised to? Does anybody ever have to deal with any advertisements? How many of you were told, hey, why don't you just go buy something new? Get rid of that old thing. Let's do that. How many of you have a credit card? You don't think about these things, and these are just the financial aspects of our American culture. But actually, every one of those things you were kind of told to do at a very young age. And it's only been recent that people have said, hey, that might not be a good idea to get a lot of credit, or buy a bunch of things with money you don't have. Might be a bad idea. By the way, little subtle announcement, we do have financial peace meeting. So you can talk to Roy about that if you want to get on that. I highly suggest it. So within that concept, we kind of become slaves to debt. We become slaves to these little bits and pieces of our culture that we don't even realize are going on around us because it's so overwhelming that we've actually tuned it out. Okay. So now you understand minimalism, and you kind of understand a little bit about your culture. So we've talked about the secular side of your culture, but what about the Christian side? So do you think there might be any place where there might be a similarity between minimalism and Christianity? It's possible. I'm going to read you some statistics really quick. I actually pulled this from a minimalist website. It's called becomingminimalist.com. And the page is actually Clutter Stats. So here are just some stats that might, help see that, yeah, you do have a culture, and yeah, there is some stuff going on that's pretty intense. So number one, there are 300,000 items in the average American home, LA Times. The average size of the American home has nearly tripled in the past 50 years, NPR. And still, 1 out of every 10 Americans rent off-site storage. It's the fastest growing segment of the commercial real estate industry over the past 4 decades, New York Times. While 25% of people with the 2-car garages don't have room to park cars inside of them, and 32% have room for only one vehicle, U.S. Department of Energy. The United States has upward of 50,000 storage facilities, more than 5 times the number of Starbucks currently. There is 7.3 square feet of self-storage space available for every man, woman, and child in the nation. Thus, it is physically possible that every American could stand all at the same time under the total canopy of self-storage roofing, SSA. The British research found that the average 10-year-old owns 238 toys but plays with just 12 daily, The Telegraph. 3.1% of the world's children live in America, but they own 40% of the toys consumed globally. The average American woman owns 30 outfits, 1 for every day of the month. In 1930, that figure was 9. Forbes. The average American family spends $1,700 on clothes annually, also Forbes. While the average American throws away 65 pounds of clothing per year, Huffington Post. Nearly half American households don't save any money, Business Insider. But our homes have more television sets than people, and those television sets are turned on for more than a third of the day, 8 hours and 14 minutes, according to USA Today. I could keep going. There's a lot more. There's a whole other page, but I will spare you. Point is, it's going on around us. It's not a topic we like to talk about, because it is so core to our culture to acquire. We have this saying that you might be aware of, keep up with the Joneses. And that's the concept of looking at something that somebody else has and seeking to have it yourself. And it's so deep in our society, it's so deep in our culture, it's so deep in us that we don't even acknowledge it anymore. We just call it, greed or jealousy or something. Like, we don't acknowledge that it's a larger problem that there's actually a solution to. Okay, Luke, we've talked a lot about secular stuff. You're probably starting to scare people. Let's talk about some Christian stuff. Okay. So if you want, you can turn in your Bibles to Matthew 6, 19 through 21. I'll give you a moment to do that. All right, I'm going to start. I'm pretty sure that all of my verses are out of the NIV, just giving you a heads up. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and vermin destroy, where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. That's just one, Luke. Surely that's all you got. 1 Timothy 6, 7 through 10. I'll give you a moment. We brought nothing into this world, and we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that. Pause. No, we won't. Those who want to get rich fall into temptation and trap into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction, but surely not me. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Some people, eager for money, have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. No, that's kind of... Didn't really like that one. Maybe there's another one that'll help. Let's see. Let's try Ecclesiastes 5:15. Everyone comes naked from their mother's womb, and as everyone comes, so they depart. They take nothing from their toil that they can carry in their hands. Now that's interesting, because I don't know how many of you are familiar with Egyptian, history. We have these big pyramids and stuff. This was a really important point back then because, these pyramids are full of treasure, right? This is the idea that the pharaoh could take it with him into the next life. That they would have treasure. And, I'm not quoting a particular source, but I did hear that at some times they would murder their servants so that they'd have somebody to take care of them in the afterlife because, they're going to go there. They need some buddies, So, obviously that has a lot of weight even for them. And then I'm going to read a really long one, so I'm not going to make you guys look it up. I lied. You can go. It's Luke 12, 13 through 21. Starting at verse 13. Someone in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." Jesus replied, "Man, who appointed me a judge or arbiter between you?" Then he said to him, "Watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions." Uh-oh. That can't be right. Watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions. Oh! That right there is really against what we are kind of brought up to believe in our culture. You work hard, you get things. That's the American way. And you deserve those things, right? If you put in the work. Right? I don't hear any rights or amens. If I work, I want stuff. What's that doing in there? Surely the Bible messed up somewhere. Well, continuing on, verse 16. Surely it'll source itself out here. And he told them in this parable, "The ground of a certain rich man yielded abundant harvest. And he thought to himself, 'What should I do? I have no place to store my crops.' And he said, 'This is what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns, and I'll build bigger ones. And there I will store my surplus grain. And I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy. Eat, drink, and be merry.' But God said to him, 'You fool! This is the very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? This is how it will be for whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich towards God.'" Oh, that one stings. So, there are some parallels, it looks like, with minimalism. Seems like the Bible's pretty upfront and forward about not storing things up for heaven, or on earth, but instead storing up things for heaven. But what does that mean? Does that mean I can get my iPod up in heaven? Make sure I can browse my angel feed or whatever is going to be going on up there? No, I don't think so. I think, and this is personal. This is me. This is my view of the world. I'm not talking about anybody else. I'm a 27-year-old male, white male. IT guy, so this is my view. I sometimes wonder if the whole he will come like a thief in the night will be because we don't even know anything's going on. You know, we as Adventists are quick to say it's going to be this crazy thing, there's going to be this time of trouble, it's going to be so intense, it's going to be nuts, but he's going to come like a thief in the night. We don't even pay attention to this going on. This could take us by surprise, that this is slowly corroding us as people. That's personal, that's just me. So I'll leave that on where it's at. So you might be asking yourself, so if we have this problem where we buy too much stuff, we're not spending enough time with people, and we have all this junk just chilling at our house, what's the solution, Luke? I mean, you're laying out the problem very well, I get it. I have an issue. There's Bible verses that make me feel uncomfortable. It's okay. So, there is a solution. I think it's important to recognize areas of your American culture that are actually getting in the way of your Christianity. To make yourself aware of those. That's personal. Because some things for other people are not challenges. Matt talked about that. How for some person, one thing might not be an issue, but for another person, it's a stumbling block. So, if you're Luke, and you have Amazon Prime, and when you have a rough week, you really want to treat yourself with something that you need, some new gadget for your IT stuff. My boss is here. My boss is in the crowd. He literally comes up to my desk sometimes and is like, man, you got a lot of stuff. My dad's laughing because he sees all the Amazon packages that come in. So yeah, I have a tablet, I've got my computer there, I've got the work-giving computer, I've got my little Linux computer. Stupid stuff I don't even need. Chat is off my desk, don't worry about it. So find those areas in your culture where your Christianity and your American culture butt, and try to make yourself aware of that. See what's a stumbling block for you, and find a way to get past it. All right. And that goes hand in hand with getting money and stuff. How you spend your money. Then if you look at Matthew 6:24, we understand that no man can serve two masters. You're either going to love one and hate the other. You can't serve God and money. It's not possible. It's biblical. It's not possible. So I know that we all have this idea that we're going to be this rich, awesome Christian with an infinity pool and a yacht. God might give you that. I don't know. I can't say. But, He might be giving you that because you are the person that can handle it. I know I couldn't because I'm poor. So I put in several lottery tickets and they have not come back in a way that I wanted them to. So I figured it out. God doesn't want me to have an infinity pool at this moment in time. Maybe one day. So just something to think about. Obviously put value in people and less towards things. I think that a lot of times we put a lot of value in things, and sometimes we'll use people to acquire those things. I tell you to switch that up, and the Bible does that a lot. A lot of times there's things that we are taught in our culture, and even when Jesus was here, he was like, here we go again. Actually, don't do it like that. That's what everybody told you to do, but you should do it the other way, the opposite way. I have to be last in line? Yeah, the first will be last, and the last will be first. I know it doesn't make a lot of sense right now. You'll figure it out. It'll be okay. There's a lot of things that don't make sense, but I say put your value in people and put less value in actual things. And I think that God is going to bless that. I know God's going to bless that because God sent you here. You're at this church. You're listening online because God knows that you need to reach people for Him. That's the only reason we're even here. That's the only reason we even have to have a conversation about this. That's the only reason that sin's in this whole earth and we haven't gone to heaven yet. Is because we're not done with the work. So maybe we should kind of get away from things and acquisition of things and start getting to acquisition of souls. Kind of to go along with that verse, let's check out Mark 12, 28 through 31. One of the teachers of the law came and heard them debating. Noticing that Jesus had given them a good answer, he asked, "Of all the commandments, which is the most important?" "The most important one," answered Jesus, "is this, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul, and with all your mind and with all your strength. The second is this, love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these." That's heavy. So, when God's sitting there doing that, He's telling you, hey, yeah, God's number one. God is the first. But what's a close second? Taking care of the people that God created that are right beside you. Fences make good neighbors, Luke. American. You know what I'm saying? So I still urge you, watch out for that. When in doubt, remember your Heavenly Father. Check out Luke 12, 22 through 26. Give you some time to turn. Then Jesus said to his disciples, "Thereby I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat, or about your body, what you will wear. For life is more than food, and the body is more than clothes. Consider the ravens, they do not sow or reap. They have no storeroom or barn, yet God feeds them. And how much more valuable are you than the birds? Who of you by worrying," now I'm going to go a little bit slower here, because this is personal. "Who of you by worrying can add a single hour to your life? Since you cannot do this little thing," worrying, adding an hour to your life, "why do you worry about anything else? Why do you worry about the rest?" That's heavy. But as a chronic worrier, I will tell you, I have to read that several times. And this one is a little bit longer too. It says Ecclesiastes 2:17 through 26. If you want to turn with me. Just a little background into why I actually picked this one. I don't know how many of you guys are really up to date on Solomon, but Solomon was one of the greatest kings of Israel. He made a lot of mistakes. But he was still dubbed by the Bible as being the wisest man who ever lived. So we're about to read the words of the wisest man who ever lived. That's pretty heavy. And so this is what he has to say. And this is long, so I don't expect you to, stick around too long, but I'm going to do it anyway. So Ecclesiastes 2:17 through 26. This is Solomon talking. "So I hated life because the work that was done under the sun was grievous to me." Sounds familiar. "All of it is meaningless, a chasing after the wind. I hated these things that I had toiled for under the sun because I have to leave them to the one who comes after me. And who knows whether that person will be wise or foolish? Yet they will have control over all the fruit of my toil, into which I have poured my effort and my skill under the sun. This too is meaningless. So my heart began to despair over all of my labor under the sun. For a person may labor with wisdom, knowledge, and skill, and then they must leave all that they have to another who has not toiled for it. This too is meaningless and a great misfortune. What do people get for all the toil and their anxious striving for which they labor under the sun? All of their days, their work is grief and pain. Even at night their minds do not rest. This too is meaningless, the American dream." Work hard, get what you want. It'll all pay off. "A person can do nothing better than to eat, drink, and find satisfaction in their own toil. This too, I see, is from the hand of God." Now you can see that there's a little bit of difference there. We went from this is meaningless, to this is from the hand of God. So I'm going to read that again. "A person can do nothing better than eat or drink and find satisfaction in their toil. This too, I see, is from the hand of God." Best thing you can do as a person is to eat, drink, and do a good job. "For without him, who can eat and find enjoyment? To the person who pleases him, God gives wisdom, knowledge, and happiness. But to the sinner, he gives the task of gathering and storing up wealth to hand it over to one who does please God. This too is meaningless, a chasing after the wind." So you work hard. Every one of you work hard. You go to school, you do everything you're supposed to do. You expect a payment. And that's okay. I get that. I do that too. Who doesn't work and want something in return? But this is where it's fundamentally important to remember that sometimes the things that God wants us to do don't always make sense. But He knows what He's doing. He made the whole earth with His voice. Who are we to doubt? And so I challenge you, become aware of this stuff in your life. Whatever it is. Become aware of it. Do your best with your little bit of time on the earth to make it about other people. You will be blessed. Thank you.